The opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the owners, staff, management, or advertisers of this station. Hello, and welcome to the Oath Keeper Show, a collection of rants, raves, personal observations, and insights on current events, social issues, and things that just don't pass the common sense test. I am the Oath Keeper, and here's today's topic. It seems like every time you turn around these days, there is something ridiculous that a school is doing. There was a kid that was suspended because he ate his Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun. There was a kid that was suspended because he fired a fake, an invisible, imaginary bow and arrow. There was a kid that here recently may actually have to register himself as a sex offender because he kissed a student on the hand. In the midst of all of this ignorance and insanity, there's an issue in Iowa now, and I'm going to go to Diane on the phone.
My son Matthew is in 6th grade, and he's in the band, and he had been walking with his clarinet in his hand, and he fell. He tripped over a music stand, fell onto the ground, and as he was getting up, his band teacher said, "If you've broken that instrument, I'm going to shoot you." She said it very sternly. She wasn't concerned about the fact that he had fallen or making sure that he was okay. Another student asked Matthew if he was okay, and he was. If they put the clarinet away, and they went and they told the principal what she had said, and the principal said, "I'll talk to her." Matthew came home and told his dad what had happened. Matthew, we were proud that Matthew had talked to the principal, figured we would be hearing something from the school. A couple days went by, and we hadn't heard anything from the school, and Matthew started having night terrors, waking up in the middle of the night saying, "Please don't shoot me. I didn't mean to. It was an accident." And then he started to not eat normally. If we're lucky, maybe a couple bites at breakfast, maybe a bite or two at lunch. Sometimes he skips both of them and eats only a couple bites at dinner, regardless of what's being offered. When I went in and talked to the school, the principal was rather shocked that I'd come in. He told me that the teacher denied having said it, and I said, "Well, I would like to talk to her." And he said, "Okay," and he went and got her, and she came in, and she said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "You threatened to shoot Matthew, and that's not okay with me." And she laughed in my face and said, "Well, I did say that." And then she looked at the principal, and she looked at me, and then I said, "You better call the superintendent because something needs to be done." And she said, "But I meant it as a joke." And I said, "Two boys did not take it as a joke." She got very defensive and said it was just a poor choice of words, and then she wanted to know if I thought that she was actually going to shoot my son. And I told her, I didn't know. I don't know her that well. I don't know what triggers anybody to invoke violence upon another person, that I don't feel that a teacher should ever threaten to shoot a child under any circumstances, and you shouldn't threaten to shoot anybody unless you're actually going to do it in a manner of self-defense.
What do you think would have happened to Matthew if Matthew had walked in and threatened to shoot the teacher?
If the situation had been reversed and Matthew had threatened to shoot her, he would have been suspended immediately, and they would have called the police for possible criminal charges. Both the superintendent and the principal have agreed that that is what would have happened.
In this case, what happened to the teacher?
She did miss 2 days of work while an outside investigator was looking into the situation. If you want to call that punishment, she is salaried, still got paid, and I guess that is the extent of the punishment she got. She is back at school. Matthew is still required to go to her classes, even though the superintendent has said that he's not, and that he would make sure Matthew didn't have to. He hasn't followed through with that.
What, has she made any attempt to apologize to him or to you or to anybody else?
She has not made any attempts to apologize to, other than during our initial meeting, her and the principal, superintendent, myself and my husband, She did say she was sorry, and I told her I did not accept her apology. I didn't feel it was needed to be directed at me. She has not attempted to apologize or explain herself to either Matthew or the other student who was concerned enough to tell the principal what he had heard and witnessed, and to go home and tell his parents about what had happened, because he was concerned not only for Matthew's safety but his own. When that child's mother has called the school, she gets a runaround because her student was not the one the threat was made against.
Was this taken before the school board?
I did go before the school board last night. Before I even got to say anything, the board president said that I'm aware of the situation you want to discuss, and we cannot discuss any incidences that involve staff members, teachers, students, parents, or that occurred at the school. It violates our personnel policy.
But shooting a student doesn't.
I asked them, I said, well, I understand that, and I just would like to know what the board's policy is for when a teacher threatens to shoot a student. They all looked at me.
But they never answered you?
They did not answer me.
They just
The only thing that the board president would say was, that's a violation of the board policy. I said, I'm being forced to send my child into an environment where he does not feel safe. And it is part of your job as the board of school board, to make sure that you guys are helping to provide a safe environment for our students, and that that it is conducive to a good learning environment, and that is currently not happening for my child, and that's why I'm here asking for your assistance resolving this issue. And she told me to talk to the school principal. And I said, I'm sorry, with all due respect, I do not feel that he handled the situation well in the first place. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, you can always talk to Mr. Miller, the superintendent. And I looked at Mr. Miller and I said, when are you available to talk? Because I'd like to resolve this now. And he didn't say anything. One of the other members, the high school principal, said that the meeting was over and that my time was up.
Approximately how long had you talked?
Less than 2 minutes.
Because usually at those type of things, you're allowed like 3 minutes.
Their rules are usually like 2.5 minutes if you're not on the agenda. And I had asked at one point to be put on the agenda, and the lady in the office made a comment that I was just stirring the waters and didn't put me on the agenda. I felt very uncomfortable being there in general, because when I sat down in the meeting, the superintendent went around and he talked to all of the board members, and I felt that he was talking about me because he looked right at me, saw me, got up, and went and talked to each individual board member, and they all, in the individual times that he was talking to them, turned and looked at me.
How does something like that make you feel?
Yeah, I don't feel like I've been given a fair shake with the school board, the superintendent, the principal, the teacher. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, in the very least, I think she needs to apologize to both of the boys and explain to them if she truly meant it as a joke, they didn't perceive it that way. She needs to explain to them why it was meant as a joke, and, so that she has better words so that something like this doesn't ever happen in the future. It doesn't take away the fact that I still have the repercussions of dealing with this for my son, and who knows how long that will go on.
Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think would have happened to you if you had walked into her classroom and you had threatened to shoot her? What do you think would have happened?
They would have called the police, and I would have been arrested, and they probably would have called the Department of Human Services and taken my son away.
Where is it in Iowa that you're at?
The school is in Hermiston, and I live in Garden Grove.
Okay.
It's a community school that services parts of 4 counties.
So I guess there it's okay for teachers to threaten students, but it's not a reciprocal thing then.
Right. That's the way that I'm feeling, is that it's acceptable for a teacher to threaten physical, imminent bodily harm to a person, but others cannot threaten a teacher.
There's a report out from one school where a 6th grader kissed a girl on the hand, and he's now have to register as a sex offender. How do you think the two of these compare to each other?
For the child that kissed the girl on the hand, I think that's an incredible overreaction, and somebody's being overzealous. A 6-year-old, kids, 6, 7-year-olds, they run around, kiss each other on the cheeks,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is they emulate things that they see on TV, and, I understand that, and there's a difference in maturity level between an adult and a child.
Right.
And, do I think he should have to register? No. Do I think he should have been suspended? No. I think that for this young boy that is somebody, if the parents are concerned, maybe they need to watch his behavior a little bit more, make sure that he isn't doing other behaviors that may cause them concern.
But it was a kiss on the back of the hand. It wasn't like he walked in and threatened to shoot somebody.
Right, exactly. And, in this situation for myself, for my son, nobody is reacting well. The people that I would prefer to be reacting and thinking of my child's safety, they all seem to be thinking of just the teacher and her job, not the well-being of my child, not only my child, but all of the children in the school.
Right.
And, it's a small school district, so she services the students from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So it's not like I can pull him from school for half a year, homeschool him, and then send him back to school in 7th grade and him not have her. She will still be a presence in that school.
What were you told by the principal because I had heard that if you tried to pull him out of school that they would refuse to excuse his absences?
If I pulled him out of school and kept him home until either the school board made a decision or they, punished her, and everything else like that, then they would not excuse his absences. And he wanted to remind me that in the state of Iowa, when a child hits 10 days of unexcused absences, they are considered truant, and it is turned over to the court.
Let me get this straight. In Iowa, you, the parent, aren't the determining factor of whether your child is truant. The school system is the one that decides whether or not your child needs to be at home.
I guess. I could call him in and say he's sick, and unless I have a doctor's note, they don't have to excuse it.
So as a parent, for your child's own safety, you cannot remove your child from school without the school getting involved and saying, well, okay, your kid's truant, and then the kid gets probably arrested and juvenile detention and then enters the quote-unquote legal system for juveniles. And
right, and there's a possibility that, as his parent, I would also get called into court and, potentially face punishment for not ensuring that my child is going to school.
Is it just an Iowa thing, or do you think it's prevalent across the country where your child's safety and your peace of mind is less important than their attendance?
As a family that was prior military and has moved around, he's been in other schools, we've dealt with other school districts, and I don't know if it is just an Iowa thing or if it's just particularly this school district, to be honest. And, I know the 10-day truancy policy is an Iowa thing. I don't know how each individual district defines truancy and unexcused absences. I know that as we've moved around, schools have been willing to excuse children. We had a death in the family and we were gone.
Right.
And, it was excused. I don't know if, under these policies at the school, if the same circumstance were to occur, if those would be excused absences or not.
I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that if I take my kid out of school because the teacher threatened to kill him, I think that's going to be an excused absence regardless of what the school wants it to be or not. I
would hope so, and I would hope that a judge would agree with me in that decision. And it is a battle for myself to send him, knowing he doesn't want to be there, and trying to limit the amount of possible legal ramifications that could come back if I just pull him and keep him out until either the situation's handled or I get approval for him to go to another school elsewhere. And then even that's tricky because being a small town, I have to open enroll him out and in, and school boards and superintendents have to sign the paperwork both ends before it can even be official.
Considering that Matthew is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder because of this situation, have you considered possibly taking legal action against this teacher? I mean, is that something that would the school even recognize something like that?
I honestly don't know whether the school would recognize anything like that. It is something that I have considered. I'm looking into a couple of different possibilities to be a guardian ad litem for Matthew so that the school doesn't feel that I'm on a witch hunt. A guardian ad litem is someone that represents Matthew and Matthew's best interest, and their job is to achieve something for him, not for me.
But as a parent, is that not the definition of your job? I mean,
as a parent, I feel it is the definition of my job, and I just get the feeling that from the superintendent that he would just rather I let this situation die, except that she's still going to be teaching, and they're going to allow her there, irregardless of how my child feels.
So keeping the teacher there, according to the school board, is more important than your child's well-being.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I realize that might be the reality of it, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I do try to get my head around this whole situation because I know that if I were to walk into a school and threaten to shoot somebody, or if I was a student enrolled in a school and I threatened to shoot somebody, or I were a parent and I walked in and said, I'm going to shoot you, I'm pretty sure that at some point the police would be there. Have they been involved in this at all?
I briefly spoke to a police officer, but, I was trying to figure out what all my options were. Right. He wasn't sure how that situation would be handled. He wanted to tell me that if they deemed it a level 2 investigation, then the local department there, which he was a part of, would look into it. He didn't say, yes, we can press charges, or no, we can't.
I would just think, and I don't know because I've not lived in Iowa, but I would think that anywhere in the country, if someone threatened to shoot your child, that you would have some legal recourse. That to me would make sense, right?
It does make sense, and I'm not, I am not 100% sure how exactly that works. I mean, I have talked to a couple of attorneys at the Department of Education, and I have filed ethics complaints. It's a matter of them looking it over, accepting it, doing them an investigation. I don't know if I will ever know if they accept them or if they do an investigation kind of thing like that, because they don't exactly tell you that kind of stuff.
Right, and why wouldn't they? I mean, why would they not tell you what the result of their investigation was found? Like, hey, we investigated, this teacher has a problem, she's threatened to kill other people, we're going to deal with that issue. Or come back and say, okay, look, it looks like it may have been just a big misunderstanding, and we're sorry that your kid now suffers from PTSD because of it, but, there was no credible threat there. I mean, do you feel that there was a credible threat from the teacher to your child?
That's a tough one to answer. I really don't honestly know. I mean, even if she wasn't intending to cause, threaten physical harm, there's still the emotional and mental backlash. And then, aspect of it where she has bullied, at the very least, a child.
Wow. I'm speechless on that because I can't. I'm trying to get my head around the whole issue that a teacher or any adult, any person that claims to be an adult, any person that claims to be responsible, any person that's in a position of authority, doing something like this and then laughing at you when you question them about it.
Yeah, that really upset me. And I mean, maybe, I don't know if, they look at it as I'm a woman and I'm too emotional, but I have to ask you, as a human being, if somebody falls onto the ground, is your first instinct going to be to raise your voice and yell at them, or are you going to check and make sure they're okay?
Yeah, valid point. I would like to think that as a person that's responsible for the health and well-being of a child in my care, I would like to think that yelling at them wouldn't be the first thing I'd do. I'd like to think that my first response or your first response would be, hey, you fallen? Are you okay?
Exactly. And that's not what happened.
Matthew clearly showing signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. He's not eating. He's having night terrors.
He doesn't want to leave. He's shutting himself off. to everyone and everything. He'd rather sit in his room and play alone than spend time with people, doing activities that he likes, anything. I mean, I don't live in an area where fast food chains are easily come by, and we have offered to drive him anywhere he wants within 3 hours to go out to dinner, wherever he wants, whether it be Red Lobster, McDonald's, anything, and, he won't even jump at that opportunity, because he'd rather sit in his room by himself.
Clearly, Matthew takes this as a credible threat.
I think he does.
And the school system just doesn't. What do you perceive their take on this to be? Is this just something that's an inconvenience to them, or what?
I think that they view it as, I'm overreacting and I just need to let it go. She said she was joking after the fact, and that they want it done and swept under the rug so that way no other issues might come out of it from other parents that might catch wind of it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the stupid question because it's got to be asked. What parent what do they consider overreacting when somebody threatens to kill your child? I'm at a loss of that one. I would think that any parent that cared about their kids I don't think there's such thing as overreacting when someone says they're going to kill your child. I just don't think there's a such thing as overreacting.
Right. I don't think there is such thing as overreacting, and maybe I am a little emotional about it because the situation is closely affecting me, my life. I'm watching my son, who has a love of a variety of things, shut the world out. And everyone in it, even those he loves and holds dear. And I feel helpless, and if I'm overreacting by trying to make the school a better environment for him and all of the children and find a way to help him and keep him safe, then I am very guilty of that. And I apologize to anybody that it offends, but I don't feel she has any business as a teacher anymore, anywhere.
No, see, I think for me, for a school to suspend a kid for kissing another student on the hand, I think for a school to suspend a kid because he broke his Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun, I think for a school to suspend a kid for shooting a fake bow and arrow, I think that's overreacting. I don't think that a parent coming in and going, look, this teacher threatened to kill my kid and I want answers. I don't think that that's overreacting. I really don't.
Right. And, several people have said, why don't you take this to the media? And part of the reason I hadn't wanted to take that measure was because I was concerned about how the emotional backlash and how this was going to affect Matthew. Having to talk about it more than once, people knowing that he's the child that a teacher has threatened to shoot. Kids ask questions, and I'm to the point where I don't know that I necessarily think that going to the media is necessarily a bad choice. There's a part of me that feels that is the only option I have left because I need a public outcry of people to be upset, offended, appalled, angry that a teacher is allowed to threaten a child and keep her job, but had the child threatened the teacher, he would have been expelled.
There would have been definitely an immediate response on that. Well, I thank you for your time. I thank you for letting me know about this, and I'm going to get the word out to as many people as I can, and hopefully we'll keep in contact, and we'll make sure something positive happens.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. You have a good day.
You too.
If you would like to show your support, you can go to facebook.com/JusticeForMatthew and take a look. Click like, show your support. Thanks a lot. You've been listening to The Oath Keeper Show. The opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff, management, owners, or advertisers of this station. You can email me at oathkeepershow@yahoo.com. You can also read my columns in the Polygraph newspaper, available in most places around the tri-state area. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.